The rain in Seattle does not wash things clean, rather it exposes the cracks. It settles into the fissures of the pavement and the siding of the houses, finding the weaknesses that the dry summer sun had made us forget. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of our master bedroom watching the gray water streak down the glass like tears on a face that had forgotten how to cry. This house was my masterpiece. I was an architect by trade, but this structure on the hill was personal. I had drawn every line, specified every beam, and chosen every slab of marble. It was designed to be a sanctuary, a fortress against the chaotic world outside. I believed that if you built a foundation strong enough, nothing could shake it. I was naive. David, are you even listening to me? The voice cut through my reverie, sharp and pristine. I turned to face Vanessa. She was standing by the walk-in closet, adjusting the collar of her silk blouse. Even after 5 years of marriage, she still had the power to make the air leave my lungs. She was polished, elegant, and terrifyingly beautiful. Her reflection in the full-length mirror showed a woman who knew exactly what she was worth, and perhaps thought she was worth a little more than what she currently had. I am listening, Ness, I said, forcing a warmth into my voice that I usually felt naturally. You said the marketing meeting is going to run late. She sighed, a dramatic exhale that was meant to convey the immense burden of her career. It is going to be a nightmare. The new client is impossible. Do not wait up for me, David. I might just grab something with the team afterwards. I watched her hands as she fastened her earrings. There was a slight tremor in her fingers, or maybe it was a trick of the low morning light. I walked over and placed my hands on her shoulders. Under the silk her muscles were tense. I could make that risotto you like, I offered. I can keep it warm. She pulled away gently but firmly, stepping out of my reach to grab her purse. It was a subtle rejection, a movement so practiced it almost looked accidental. No, really, do not bother, she said, checking her reflection one last time. You know how these things go. I will just see you when I get home. Love you. The words were automatic, like the chime of the security system when you open a door. Love you. A phrase stripped of its weight, reduced to punctuation. She did not look at me when she said it. She was already mentally out the door, halfway to wherever she was really going. I watched from the window as her white sedan pulled out of the driveway and disappeared into the mist. I stood there for a long time, surrounded by the silence of the house I had built for us. It was a spacious open concept design meant to encourage togetherness, but lately the open spaces just felt like distance. The acoustics were too good. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen downstairs. I could hear the settling of the foundation. I could hear the silence where our life used to be. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, vibrating against the mahogany surface. I picked it up, expecting a notification from the office or maybe a reminder about a site inspection. It was a text from Emily, my younger sister. We need to talk. Now. Do not tell her. My stomach turned over. Emily was not prone to drama. She was the practical one, the grounded one. We were close in the way siblings are when they survive a turbulent childhood together. She had always championed Vanessa. They went to yoga together, they shared inside jokes, they were supposed to be best friends. For Emily to send a message like that excluding Vanessa meant something was wrong. Terrifyingly wrong. Is Mom okay? I typed back, my fingers clumsy. Just meet me. The coffee shop on 4th, 30 minutes. Come alone, David. Please. I did not shower. I threw on a raincoat over my t-shirt and jeans, grabbed my keys and left the house. The drive into the city was a blur of gray highway and red taillights. My mind raced through catastrophic scenarios. Had Emily found a lump? Was she in financial trouble? Had something happened to her husband? The directive "do not tell her" echoed in my mind. Why would I not tell Vanessa? Vanessa was family. Unless. The thought tried to surface, but I shoved it down. I was a man of logic, not paranoia. I trusted my wife. I trusted the life we had built. We had plans. We had a joint bank account. We had a future mapped out in 5-year increments. I found Emily sitting in the back corner of the coffee shop, a place with exposed brick walls and indie music that was too loud for the morning crowd. She had an untouched latte in front of her. She looked pale, her eyes rimmed with red as if she had not slept. When she saw me, she did not smile. She looked like she was attending a funeral. What is it?" I asked, sliding into the booth opposite her. "You are scaring me." She looked at me and I saw a profound pity in her eyes that made my blood run cold. I hated pity. I could handle anger, I could handle grief, but pity was a mirror showing you a version of yourself you did not want to see. "David," she started, her voice shaking. "You know I love you, right? You know I would never do anything to hurt you unless it was to save you from something worse. Just tell me, Emily. Is it a health thing?" She shook her head. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Her hand was trembling. "Last night Vanessa and I went out for drinks," she said. "Like we planned. She had a few too many. She thinks we are on the same page about things. About life. About men." I frowned. What are you talking about? She went to the restroom, Emily continued. She left her phone on the table. It was recording. She was making a voice memo for someone else. But she didn't stop it when I came back. She just kept talking to me. She forgot it was running. Or she just didn't care. Emily took a deep breath and slid the phone across the table. I made a copy, she whispered. I listened to it all night hoping I misunderstood. But I didn't. You need to listen, David. I stared at the device. It looked like a harmless piece of glass and metal. It was a bomb. I knew it was a bomb. I could feel the heat radiating from it. Play it, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else in the room. Emily pressed the screen and then pushed the phone closer to me. The audio was grainy at first, the background noise of a bar, clinking glasses and laughter. Then Vanessa's voice cut through. Clear. Confident. Cruel. Honestly, it is just so easy, Mark. That was the name. Mark. I felt a physical blow to my chest, a tightness that made it hard to breathe. I gripped the edge of the table. Her voice continued, accompanied by the sound of ice rattling in a glass. David is a sweetheart, really. He is so safe. Like a golden retriever. Or a savings bond. I heard Emily's voice on the recording, hesitant, nervous. But Ness, you guys have the house. You have plans. Vanessa laughed. It was a sound I had heard 1,000 times, but never with this cadence. It was a cold, mocking sound. The house? The house is my retirement fund, Em. I let him play with his blueprints and his contractors. He feels like a big man building his castle. But once the market peaks next year, I am cashing out. Half of that is mine. And with what Mark is bringing to the table, well, let us just say David is a stepping stone. A very comfortable, boring stepping stone. There was a pause on the recording. I stared at the wood grain of the table, trying to align the grain with the voice. Does he suspect anything? Emily's voice asked. Vanessa snorted. David? Please. He is an architect. He looks at structure, not people. If the walls are straight, he thinks the house is standing. He has no idea I have been sleeping with Mark for 6 months. He is so oblivious it is almost insulting. I could bring Mark into our bed and tell David he is a sleep therapist, and he would probably thank him. The recording ended with a sharp click. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The indie music in the shop seemed to fade away, leaving only the ringing in my ears. Oblivious. Stepping stone. Savings bond. I did not explode. I did not flip the table. I sat there perfectly still. It is a professional hazard, I suppose. When a building collapses, you do not scream at the rubble. You analyze the structural failure. You look for the cause. David? Emily reached out and touched my hand. Her fingers were cold. Say something. 6 months, I said. My voice was flat, devoid of inflection. At least, Emily whispered. She showed me photos. Afterwards. She was bragging, David. She was proud of it. She called it having her cake and eating it too. She thinks I am her ally. She thinks because I am a woman I will understand the need for excitement. I slowly pulled my hand away from hers. I felt a strange clarity washing over me. It was the clarity of a man who wakes up to find his house on fire. The panic comes later. First comes the assessment of the exits. Who is Mark? He is some venture capitalist she met at a gala in the spring, Emily said, spitting the words out. He is flashy. Arrogant. Everything you are not. And he is broke, David. Rumor is he is leveraged up to his eyeballs. She does not know that. She thinks he is her ticket to the jet-set life. She is going to leave you, and she is going to take half of everything you built to fund his debts. I nodded slowly. The picture was completing itself. The late nights. The new clothes. The way she guarded her phone. The subtle contempt in her eyes when I talked about my day. It was not stress. It was boredom. I was the safe harbor she was docked in while she waited for her pirate ship. Thank you, Emily, I said. I stood up. Where are you going? Emily grabbed my wrist. David, do not do anything stupid. Do not go home and confront her. She will deny it. She will spin it. Or worse, she will trigger the divorce now before you are ready. You know how good she is with words. She works in PR, for God's sake. She will make you look like the villain. I looked down at my sister. I saw the fear in her face, fear for me. She thought I was going to break. She thought I was going to crumble like poor quality concrete. I am not going to confront her, I said. Then what are you going to do? I am going to go home, I said. I have some work to do. I walked out of the coffee shop and into the rain. The water felt good on my face. It felt real. The drive back to the house was different. I drove with precision, obeying every traffic law. My mind was a white room, a drafting table cleared of all old prints. I needed a new design. When I pulled into the driveway, the house loomed above me. Modern, angular, imposing. Cedar wood and slate. I had poured my soul into this place. I had imagined raising children here. I had imagined growing old on that deck watching the trees grow. Now it was just a pile of materials. Wood, glass, stone, assets. I entered through the garage and deactivated the alarm. The silence of the house greeted me again, but this time it did not feel empty. It felt hostile. Every object in the living room seemed to mock me. The vase she had picked out. The rug we had bought in Morocco. Lies. All of it props on a stage. I walked straight to my home office. I locked the door behind me. I sat at my desk and stared at the wall. My hands were steady. Why were they steady? I should be shaking. I should be weeping. But the architect in me had taken over. The emotional structural integrity had failed, so the emergency supports had kicked in. Cold logic. She wanted to cash out. She wanted to take half. She viewed me as a resource to be harvested. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and revealed the hidden wall safe. I spun the dial. Right. Left. Right. The heavy steel door clicked open. Inside were our passports, birth certificates, and a stack of legal documents. I thumbed through them, my movements efficient. Life insurance. Title deeds. Mortgage papers. And then I found it. The power of attorney. About a year ago we had considered buying a distressed commercial property for renovation. It was a complicated deal that required rapid movement of funds and signatures while Vanessa was scheduled to be in Europe for a 2-week business trip. She had complained about the paperwork, about the hassle of being disturbed on her trip. So I had her sign a general power of attorney. It was broad, giving me the authority to act on her behalf in all financial and real estate matters. We never bought the commercial property. The deal fell through. We filed the papers away and forgot about them. Vanessa forgot about them. I pulled the document out and laid it on the desk. The paper was crisp. Her signature was a flamboyant loop of blue ink at the bottom. I scanned the text. It was ironclad. It gave me the power to sell, encumber, and manage all real property. My eyes drifted to the bottom of the page, to the validity clause. These documents usually had an expiration date unless specified otherwise. We had set it for 1 year just to be safe, to cover the duration of that potential project window. I looked at the date of signing. September 28th of last year. I looked at the calendar on my phone. Today was September 21st. My heart stopped for a beat and then hammered against my ribs. 7 days. I had exactly 1 week before this piece of paper turned into worthless confetti. 7 days where I legally was Vanessa Miller in the eyes of the bank and the state. 7 days where I could sell everything we owned without her picking up a pen. A plan began to form in my mind. It was not a rough sketch. It appeared fully formed, like a CAD drawing rendering in real time. It was intricate, dangerous, and required absolute precision. If I made one mistake, if she suspected anything, she would revoke the power of attorney instantly. She would freeze the accounts. She would bring in the lawyers, and the war would drag on for years, leaving me emotionally and financially gutted. But if I moved fast, if I sold the house, if I liquidated the assets, if I separated the finances, I could give her exactly what she deserved. I could ensure that when she walked away to her excitement, she did so with nothing but the clothes on her back and the debt she had likely accrued. I picked up the phone. I did not call a divorce lawyer. I called Marcus. Marcus was a friend from college, a real estate broker who operated on the edge of the aggressive market. He moved properties that were not supposed to be moved. He knew investors who paid cash and asked very few questions, as long as the title was clean and the discount was steep. David? Marcus answered on the second ring. To what do I owe the pleasure? We haven't spoken since the alumni dinner. I need a favor, Marcus, I said, my voice dropping to a low monotone. And I need discretion. Absolute silence. You know me, David. I am a vault. What is going on? I am selling the house. There was a pause. The big house? The one you just finished? The award winner? David, are you crazy? That place is your baby. I am selling it, I repeated. Off market. Cash only. Immediate close. I need it done in 5 days. 5 days? David, that is insanity. Even in this market. Why? Is everything okay? Are you in trouble? No, I said, staring at the signature on the power of attorney. I am just restructuring. Can you do it or not? Marcus hesitated. For a property like that, price to move? I have a few sharks in my contact list who would bite. But they will lowball you. You are going to lose equity. I do not care about the equity, I said. I care about the speed. I want it gone. And Marcus? Yeah. Vanessa cannot know. Not until the ink is dry. A long silence on the other end. Then a low whistle. Okay. I get it. I do not want to know the details, but I get it. I have a guy. Russian fellow. Buys heavy, creates rentals. He has liquidity. I can get him there tomorrow. But David, if she shows up? She works during the day, I said. Bring him at noon. Done. I will draft the preliminary papers. I hung up. The first pillar of the plan was in place. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a fugue state. I went through the house room by room. I looked at the things we had accumulated. The expensive espresso machine. The art on the walls. The designer furniture. It all looked like clutter now. Debris. I went into the bedroom. I opened her jewelry box. I saw the diamond necklace I had bought her for our anniversary. She had worn it once and then said it was too heavy. I closed the box. I heard the garage door open downstairs. Panic flared hot and bright. I checked the time. It was 6 p.m. She was home. I sat at the desk for 1 second longer, breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth. I had to become an actor. I had to become a structure with a facade so perfect no one would guess the interior was being gutted. I stood up, unlocked the office door and walked out to the landing. Vanessa was coming through the front door. She looked tired, but her makeup was still perfect. She was carrying a takeout bag from a high-end Italian place. Hey, she called out, dropping her keys in the bowl. Sorry, I am late. The client was a total drain. I brought peace offerings. Truffle pasta? She looked up and saw me standing at the top of the stairs. For a split second I wanted to scream. I wanted to play the recording over the house speakers. I wanted to throw her suitcase down the stairs. Instead, I forced the muscles of my face into a smile. It felt like stretching concrete, but it held. Hey, I said, walking down the stairs. You are a lifesaver. I was starving. She pecked me on the cheek. She smelled of wine and that expensive perfume I had bought her. And something else. A faint musk of cologne that was not mine. I took the bag from her. How was the meeting? Oh, you know, she said, kicking off her heels. Endless. Boring. I swear these corporate types just like to hear themselves talk. I missed you. The lie came out of her mouth so easily, so smoothly. It was a masterpiece of deception. I missed you too, I said, turning towards the kitchen so she would not see my eyes. We ate dinner at the island. She talked about her day, inventing a narrative with impressive detail. She described the client, the arguments, the resolution. It was all fiction. She had been with Mark. She had been mocking me. I nodded at the right times. I laughed at the right jokes. Inside I was calculating timelines. Tomorrow noon, the investor viewing. Wednesday, the paperwork. Thursday, the bank transfers. Friday, the movers. Saturday, the expiration. David? She asked, touching my hand. You are quiet tonight. Everything okay? I looked at her hand on mine. The manicured nails. The wedding ring. I am fine, I said. Just a headache. Work stress. You know how it is. She smiled, a patronizing little smile. Poor baby. You work too hard. You should relax more. Maybe we can book a weekend away soon? Just the two of us? She was stringing me along, keeping the asset stable until she was ready to liquidate. That sounds great, Ness, I said. Really great. I cleared the plates. I washed the dishes. I watched TV with her for an hour, sitting on the sofa we had picked out together. I felt her head on my shoulder. It felt like a heavy stone. When we went to bed, she turned away from me immediately. Good night, David, she murmured. Good night, I whispered. I lay awake in the dark, listening to her breathing. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still covered the moon. The house creaked, settling into the wet earth. 7 days. I closed my eyes and visualized the demolition. It would be precise. It would be total. And when the dust settled, she would be standing in the rubble, wondering how the roof had come down without a sound. The clock on the nightstand flicked over. 6 days and 23 hours left. I finally slept a dreamless sleep of the righteous man who has sharpened his knife. Tuesday morning arrived with a deceptive calmness that felt almost heavy on my skin. The sky outside was a bruised purple, fading into the typical slate gray of the Pacific Northwest, but inside the house the air was still and pressurized. I woke up before the alarm, a habit that was quickly becoming a curse. Vanessa was still asleep beside me, her breathing rhythmic and untroubled. I watched her for a moment, feeling a strange detachment. It was as if I was observing a stranger or a wax figure in a museum exhibit labeled The Happy Marriage. I knew the mechanisms underneath the wax now. I knew about the gears and the wires and the recording that played the same looped lies. I slipped out of bed, moving with the silence of a ghost in my own home. I needed to be sick today. Not just feeling under the weather, but convincingly incapacitated. I needed a reason to be home alone, a reason that would keep Vanessa from questioning why I wasn't at the firm. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection. The stress had drawn tight lines around my eyes. It wasn't hard to look unwell. The nausea of betrayal was doing most of the work for me. When Vanessa stirred 20 minutes later, I was sitting on the edge of the bed clutching a glass of water, my hand trembling slightly. It was a calculated performance. "David?" She sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "You look terrible." "Migraine," I rasped. "It feels like a drill behind my right eye. I threw up twice already." She made a sympathetic noise, but I saw the flicker of relief in her eyes. A sick husband meant she didn't have to interact with me much. It meant she could go about her day without guilt because she had her own important things to do. "Oh, poor thing," she said, reaching out to touch my forehead. Her hand was cool. "You are not burning up, but you look pale. Do you want me to stay?" It was the test. The obligatory offer. "No," I said quickly, too quickly. I forced myself to slow down. "No, you have that presentation with the developers. You cannot miss it. I will just close the blinds and sleep it off. I probably won't even leave the bedroom." "Are you sure?" "I can call in." "Go, Ness. I will be fine. Just need dark and quiet." She hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding. "Okay. I will leave some aspirin on the nightstand. Call me if you need anything." I listened to her get ready. The sounds of the shower, the hair dryer, the clinking of her makeup jars were amplified in the silence of the house. Every noise was a reminder of the routine I was about to dismantle. When she finally came to say goodbye, she was dressed in a sharp navy suit, armor for the corporate world she claimed to despise but desperately wanted to rule. She kissed my forehead gingerly as if my failure might be contagious. "Rest," she said. "I will be late again tonight. Dinner with the team." "I know," I said. "Have fun." I waited. I waited until I heard the front door close. I waited until I heard the garage door rumble open and shut. I waited until the sound of her engine faded completely down the winding driveway. Only then did I exhale. The migraine vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. It was 8:30 a.m. Marcus was bringing the investor at noon. I had 3.5 hours to prepare the stage. I did not go back to sleep. I went downstairs and began a silent inventory. I wasn't packing yet, that would be too risky. If she came back for a forgotten file or a phone charger, she would see boxes and the game would be over. Instead, I was mentally tagging everything. The grand piano she never played? Tagged for sale. The custom leather sectional? Tagged. The art? Tagged. I walked through the rooms like an insurance adjuster after a disaster, assessing the value of the wreckage. I called the office at 9 a.m. My voice was steady but low. I told my project manager I was down with severe food poisoning. He bought it without question. I was the guy who never took days off. If David Miller wasn't coming in, it had to be serious. That was the reputation I had built: reliable, steady, predictable. The same reputation Vanessa mocked to her lover. By 11 a.m. the house was spotless. I wanted it to look like a model home. Impersonal. Valuable. I opened the blinds in the living room, letting the gray light flood the hardwood floors. I wanted the investor to see the bones of the place, the architectural integrity. I wasn't selling a home anymore, I was selling a high-yield asset. At 11:55 a.m. a black SUV with tinted windows pulled into the driveway. It wasn't Marcus's car. It was a heavy, expensive vehicle that looked like it belonged in a motorcade. Marcus hopped out of the passenger side looking nervous. He was wearing a suit that was slightly too shiny for Seattle, nervously adjusting his tie. The driver's door didn't open. Instead, the rear door swung wide and a man stepped out. He was older, perhaps in his 60s, with steel gray hair cut short and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. He wore a cashmere coat over a dark turtleneck. He didn't look like a man who bought houses, he looked like a man who bought countries. I opened the front door before they could ring the bell. "David," Marcus said, forcing a smile. "Good to see you, buddy. Although you look, well, you said you were sick." "I am," I said, stepping aside. "Sick of this house." "Come in." Marcus gestured to the older man. "David, this is Mr. Volkov. He represents a private equity group looking for rapid acquisitions." Mr. Volkov didn't smile. He stepped into the foyer and looked up at the vaulted ceiling. His eyes were pale blue and they moved with the precision of a scanner. He didn't look at me, he looked at the joinery of the beams. "Nice ceilings," he said. His voice was deep, accented but clear. "Cedar?" "Alaskan yellow cedar," I answered. "Hand-milled." He nodded once. "Show me." The tour was surreal. Usually when you sell a house you point out the memories. "This is where we put the Christmas tree," or "the light in this room is beautiful in the morning." I didn't do any of that. I spoke like a broker. "Square footage is 4,500, I said, leading them into the great room. Radiant heating under the slate floors. Smart home integration for all security and climate systems. The kitchen is outfitted with Wolf and Sub-Zero appliances less than 2 years old. Volkov walked to the kitchen island, running a hand over the quartz surface. He opened a drawer and checked the glides. He wasn't looking for beauty, he was looking for quality. He was checking the resale value. Why? He asked, suddenly turning to face me. Excuse me? Why sell? You built this. I can tell. An architect built this for himself. The details are too obsessive for a spec house. Why sell in a day? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Volkov, we discussed the terms. I looked Volkov in the eye. Liquidity, I said. I have a new opportunity. It requires immediate capital and zero baggage. Volkov stared at me for a long moment. He saw something in my face. Maybe he recognized the look of a man cutting off a limb to save the body. He nodded. Clean title? I patted the pocket of my cardigan where the power of attorney and the deed were folded. 100% clean. My wife has granted full authority. We can close today if the wire transfer clears. Price, Marcus interjected, naming a figure that was 20% below market value. It was a painful number, a number that erased years of equity growth. But it was a number that guaranteed a signature. Volkov didn't blink at the price. He walked to the window looking out at the wet garden. Furniture? He asked. Included, I said. Everything you see. Except personal effects and clothing. Volkov turned around. He looked at the room, then at me. It is a good house. It has strong bones. I will take it. Marcus let out a breath he seemed to have been holding since the driveway. Fantastic. I have the papers right here. We can just... The sound of a garage door opening cut through the silence like a gunshot. I froze. Marcus froze. Volkov merely raised an eyebrow. Is that the wife? Volkov asked calmly. I checked my watch. 12:30 p.m. Why was she here? She never came home for lunch. Never. Her office was 30 minutes away. The panic that hit me was visceral. If she walked in here and saw Marcus, saw Volkov, saw the papers on the table, it was over. She would scream, she would call the lawyers, she would revoke the power of attorney before I could blink. Hide, I whispered. Marcus looked at me wild-eyed. What? Hide? I hissed, grabbing his arm. Upstairs. The master bedroom. Go. But David. Move. I shoved Marcus toward the staircase. Volkov didn't need shoving. He assessed the tactical situation instantly. He moved with surprising speed for his age, silent on the slate floors, following Marcus up the stairs. I was right behind them. We reached the landing just as the door from the garage to the kitchen opened downstairs. David? Vanessa's voice echoed up the stairwell. Are you awake? I pushed Marcus and Volkov into the master bedroom and pointed to the walk-in closet. It was the only place. The bathroom had no lock. The bedroom was too open. The closet was a room unto itself, a maze of shelves and racks. Get in the back, I whispered. Don't make a sound. This is ridiculous, Marcus hissed, wiping sweat from his forehead. I am a licensed broker, I am not hiding in a closet. Do you want the commission or not? I snapped. Volkov was already inside, stepping behind a row of winter coats. He looked amused. He pulled Marcus in after him. I closed the closet door, leaving it cracked a fraction of an inch, just enough so the latch wouldn't click. Then I scrambled into the bed, messing up the covers to look like I had been sleeping. I grabbed a tissue and held it to my nose. David? She was coming up the stairs. I could hear her heels clicking on the wood. Click, click, click. The sound of an approaching executioner. I am here, Ness, I called out, making my voice sound weak and groggy. Just waking up. She appeared in the doorway. She was holding a garment bag. She looked annoyed, flustered even. I forgot my cocktail dress, she said. The black one. They changed the venue for tonight, it is black tie now. I have to change and head straight there. She walked into the room. I lay there, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I was sure she could see it through the duvet. The closet was 10 feet away. Marcus and Volkov were standing among her shoes and handbags. Did you sleep? She asked, tossing the garment bag on the chaise lounge. A little, I lied. Still feel nauseous. She walked to the mirror, the one right next to the closet door. She checked her makeup. I watched her reflection. I watched the closet door. Was it moving? Was Marcus breathing too loud? I hate these last-minute changes, she muttered, applying fresh lipstick. It is so unprofessional. I have to drive all the way back to the city in this traffic. She turned and walked toward the closet. My blood froze. Ness, I said sharply. She stopped, hand on the doorknob. What? Can you get me some water? I think I need to take another pill. My legs feel like jelly. She sighed, her hand dropping from the knob. David, there is a bottle right there on the nightstand. It is empty, I said. Please. I really feel like I might pass out if I stand up. She rolled her eyes but turned away from the closet. Fine. But I have to hurry. She walked out of the bedroom and down the hall toward the bathroom. I let out a silent scream of relief. I sat up and signaled to the closet door. A hand appeared from the darkness, Volkov's hand, giving me a thumbs up. I heard the tap running in the bathroom. Then I heard her phone ring. It wasn't her work ringtone. It was the specific chime she had assigned to unknown caller. She answered it immediately, her voice changing instantly from annoyed wife to something softer, something huskier. "Hey," she said. "I am home. Just grabbing the dress." She walked back into the bedroom carrying the glass of water. She set it on the nightstand without looking at me. She was focused entirely on the voice in her ear. "I know," she said, laughing softly. "I miss you too. It has been a long morning. He is here, yes, sick. Migraine or something. He is out of it." She walked over to the window, the one overlooking the backyard. She was standing with her back to me, but she was facing the closet door reflection in the glass. "Don't worry, Mark," she said. "He has no clue. He is literally in bed right now looking like a kicked puppy. It is pathetic, really." I lay there gripping the sheets. In the closet, Marcus and Volkov were hearing every word. "Yeah, I grabbed the papers for the trust," she continued, lowering her voice slightly, but in the silence of the room it was crystal clear. "I am going to bring them to you tonight. We can start moving the funds next week. I talked to the lawyer," he said. "If I can get him to sign the refinancing on the house, we can pull out the equity before I file for divorce." She laughed again, a cruel, sharp sound. "He will sign it. You know he will. I will just tell him it is for tax purposes or some investment strategy. He trusts me blindly. He thinks we are partners. By the time he realizes the accounts are drained and the house is leveraged, we will be in Cabo." I stared at her back. The audacity was breathtaking. She wasn't just leaving, she was planning to rob me blind. She was planning to use my trust to bankrupt me. "And Mark?" she added, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Don't book the cheap suite. If we are celebrating my freedom, I want the penthouse. Use his card. He won't check the statement until the end of the month." She turned around, then facing me and the closet. "I have to go," she said into the phone. "I will see you in an hour. Love you." She hung up. She looked at me and the mask slid back into place. The concerned wife. "Here is your water, David. Try to sleep. I probably won't be back until late tomorrow. Stayed at a hotel near the venue so I don't have to drive back drunk." "Thank you, Ness," I said. My voice was calm. Terrifyingly calm. "You think of everything." "I try," she said. She went to the closet. My heart stopped again. She opened the door. She reached in blindly, her eyes still on me, grabbing the black dress from the front rack. She didn't look into the depths of the closet. She didn't see the two men pressed against the back wall behind her winter coats. She just grabbed the hanger and pulled it out. "Bye, David," she said, closing the closet door. "Bye, Ness." She changed in the bathroom, emerging 5 minutes later in the black gown, looking stunning and lethal. She grabbed her bag and walked out. I listened. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs. The front door opening. The car starting. The silence returning. I sat on the bed for a full minute before I spoke. "You can come out now." The closet door opened. Marcus stepped out looking pale and shaken. He looked like he had just witnessed a murder. Volkov stepped out after him. He looked different. The cynicism was gone from his eyes, replaced by a cold, hard respect. He adjusted his coat. That, Volkov said, brushing a piece of lint from his sleeve, was educational. Marcus sat down on the chaise lounge heavily. "Jesus David. I didn't know. I thought you were just having a midlife crisis or something. But that? She is a monster. She is a businesswoman," I said, getting out of bed. I was no longer playing the sick invalid. I stood straight. "She has a strategy. I just have a better one." Volkov walked over to the window where Vanessa had stood. He looked out at the driveway. "She plans to leverage the house," he said. "To drain the equity." "Yes," I said. "And she thinks you are a fool." Volkov turned to me. "She called you a puppy." I walked over to the dresser and picked up the pen I had left there. "I am selling the house, Mr. Volkov. Right now. Today. Before she gets to the bank. Do we have a deal?" Volkov looked at me. A slow smile spread across his face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator recognizing another predator. "Marcus," he said without looking away from me. "The papers." "But..." Marcus stammered. "The inspection, the disclosures." Volkov cut him off with a sharp gesture. "No inspection. As is. Where do I sign?" Marcus fumbled with his briefcase, pulling out the contract. He laid it on the dresser next to Vanessa's jewelry box. Volkov took the pen from my hand. He didn't read the fine print. He didn't ask about the roof or the foundation. He signed his name with a flourish, heavy and dark. "Transfer the funds," Volkov said to Marcus. "Now. From the holding account. I want the wire confirmation in 10 minutes. He turned to me. "You have 1 week?" "Less," I said. 5 days. Volkov nodded. You can stay here until Friday. Finish your business. Move your things. But on Friday at midnight my security team takes possession. Anyone inside will be removed. Understood, I said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. If you need movers, quiet movers, call this number. They don't ask questions. They just clear rooms. Thank you. Volkov walked to the door. He stopped and looked back at the closet. She wants the penthouse, he mused. Yes. He chuckled, a dry rattling sound. I own that hotel. The one she mentioned. The Ritz downtown? I nodded. I will make sure the service is memorable, Volkov said. Goodbye, Mr. Miller. Good luck with your renovation. He walked out. Marcus scrambled after him, pausing only to squeeze my shoulder. I will call you when the money hits, he whispered. I am sorry, David. Really? Then he was gone. I was alone in the bedroom again. The scent of her perfume still lingered in the air, mixed with the faint metallic smell of fear that had come from the closet. I walked to the closet and opened the door wide. I looked at her clothes. Rows and rows of designer dresses, shoes that cost more than my first car, handbags worth thousands. It was a shrine to her vanity, funded by our joint account. I reached out and touched the sleeve of a silk blouse. She thought I was the foundation she could walk on. She thought I was the wall she could hang her trophies on. She forgot that the architect controls the demolition. I went downstairs to the kitchen. I made myself a coffee. I sat at the island where we had eaten breakfast 1,000 times. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. Wire initiated. Funds will clear in 2 hours. It is done. I looked at the screen. The house was no longer mine. I was a squatter in a stranger's property. And Vanessa? Vanessa was unknowingly homeless. I took a sip of coffee. It tasted bitter and black and absolutely perfect. The shadow in the living room had shifted. The sun was trying to break through the clouds outside. I watched a beam of light hit the floor, illuminating a dust mote dancing in the air. Let her have the penthouse, I thought. Let her have the champagne and the lover and the laughter. Let her climb as high as she wants. The higher she climbs, the longer the fall. I picked up the power of attorney document again. Now that the house was sold, the next step was the accounts. The investments. The retirement funds. She wanted to separate the assets? I would separate them with a scalpel. I walked into my office and turned on the shredder. The noise was loud in the empty house, a mechanical grinding that sounded like progress. I was no longer building. I was excavating. And I was just getting started. Friday arrived not with the dramatic crash of thunder, but with the banal high-pitched zip of a suitcase closing. It was the sound of finality, the sound of a life being compartmentalized and wheeled away. I lay in bed feigning sleep one last time, listening to Vanessa pack for her corporate retreat. She was humming. It was a soft, tuneless melody that she only made when she was genuinely excited. The guilt, if she ever had any, had evaporated, completely replaced by the thrill of the escape. I opened my eyes just a slit, watching her silhouette move against the gray morning light filtering through the sheer curtains. She was dressed in comfortable travel clothes, cashmere joggers and a fitted top, the kind of outfit one wears for a long flight or a drive to a luxury resort, not a stuffy conference room. She checked her phone, smiling at the screen. Mark doubtless sending her emojis of champagne bottles and roulette wheels. David? She whispered, leaning over the bed. I let out a groggy, performed moan, shifting under the covers. Yeah. I am heading out. The car is here. I blinked, my eyes open, looking at her. It was strange to look at someone you had built a life with, someone whose face was as familiar to you as your own hand, and realize you were looking at a stranger. A stranger who was about to rob you. Have fun, I croaked. Learn a lot. She smirked, a tiny reflexive tightening of her lips. Oh, I will. There are some intense workshops planned. I will probably be unreachable until Sunday night. Poor reception in the mountains, you know? The mountains. She was going to Las Vegas. The lie was so lazy it was almost insulting. Be safe, I said. Love you, she said, automatically turning away before the words had even fully landed. I listened. I counted the steps. Down the stairs. Across the foyer. The heavy thud of the front door. The electronic chirp of the alarm being disarmed. She didn't arm it again. The sound of the Uber driver's car idling, then accelerating down the driveway. I waited 2 full minutes. 120 seconds of silence. Then I sat up and threw the covers off. The sickness, the fatigue, the heavy-limbed depression, it all vanished instantly. I felt light. I felt electric. I was no longer the victim waiting for the axe to fall. I was the executioner, and the guillotine was oiled and ready. It was 7:45 a.m. I picked up my phone and dialed the number Volkov had given me. She is gone, I said. The response was immediate, a gruff voice that wasted no syllables. We are 2 minutes out. Open the gate. I went downstairs dressed in work jeans and a t-shirt. I brewed a pot of coffee strong and black. As the last drop hit the carafe, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find a fleet of 3 unmarked white box trucks idling in my driveway. They looked like medical transport vehicles, sterile and anonymous. 6 men stood on the porch. They wore gray coveralls with no logos. They didn't look like movers. They looked like a cleanup crew for a hazardous materials site. "Mr. Miller?" the leader asked. He was a short, wiry man with a clipboard. "Yes. We have your instructions. Zone A is personal effects for storage. Zone B is trash. Zone C is furniture to remain. Correct?" "Correct," I said. "But there is a change. Zone C is everything except the items on this list." I handed him a sheet of paper. It was a short list. My clothes. My laptop. My grandfather's watch. A few architectural models I couldn't bear to part with. Everything else, the furniture, the electronics, the art, the rugs, was staying. It was part of the deal with Volkov. "And the wife's things?" the leader asked. "Pack it all," I said. "Everything in the master closet. Everything in the vanity. But pack it carefully. High-end wardrobe. It goes to the storage unit on 4th Street. Here is the key." The leader nodded. He signaled to his team. They moved with terrifying efficiency. There was no shouting, no clanging of dollies. They wore shoe covers. They lifted heavy oak tables as if they were made of balsa wood. I stood in the center of the living room drinking my coffee, watching my life disappear. It was a strange form of time-lapse photography. The room was stripped of its personality layer by layer. The throw pillows I had agonized over? Gone. The framed photos of our travels? Placed in a box labeled trash, per my instructions. I didn't want the memories. I wanted the space. By 10 a.m. the second floor was cleared. I went up to the master bedroom. The closet, Vanessa's sanctuary, was being dismantled. The men were transferring her dresses into wardrobe boxes with the care of museum curators. "Sir?" one of the men called out. He was reaching onto the top shelf of the closet, a dusty corner where Vanessa kept her winter boots and old shoeboxes. "I found this behind the molding. It was loose." He handed me a metal box. It wasn't a safe, just a lockbox disguised as a book. The history of Renaissance art. Heavy. I took it. I knew Vanessa didn't read history. "Thank you," I said. "Carry on." I took the box to my office, the only room that was still intact. I sat at the desk and examined the lock. It was a simple 3-digit combo. I tried her birthday. Click. The lid sprang open. I expected to find love letters. I expected to find jewelry. What I found was paper. Stacks of it. I pulled out the first bundle. Credit card statements. Not the joint cards we shared, but cards I had never seen. Platinum cards, gold cards, cards from banks that specialized in high-risk lending. I scanned the balances. Visa, $12,400. Amex, $28,000. MasterCard, $15,000. I did the math quickly. She was nearly $60,000 in debt on credit cards alone. I dug deeper. There were letters from a collection agency regarding a personal loan. Another $20,000. And then at the bottom of the box, a notebook. A small leather-bound journal. I opened it. It wasn't a diary of feelings. It was a ledger of calculations. Her handwriting scrawled and frantic. "Mark says the investment buy-in is $100,000. Need cash by October. Sell the jewelry? Equity line on the house? David won't notice if I forge the signature on the refinancing doc. Divorce settlement projection, $500,000 minimum. Pays off debts plus Mark's buy-in plus Vegas trip." I stared at the page. The ink was barely dry on the last entry. She wasn't just leaving me for a lover. She was drowning. She was a financial black hole, and she had been planning to use the divorce settlement, my hard-earned equity, to plug the leaks in her sinking ship and fund a gamble with a man who was likely just as broke as she was. She thought she was going to walk away with $500,000. I felt a cold smile stretch across my face. It wasn't a smile of joy. It was the smile of a chess player who just realized his opponent had left her king completely unguarded. I had the power of attorney. It gave me the right to settle debts and manage liabilities. I reached for my laptop. I logged into our main bank account. The wire from Volkov had cleared an hour ago. The balance was staggering. The house was sold. The mortgage was paid off. The profit sat there, a lump sum of liquid potential. Strictly speaking, half of this money was hers. If I just took it, I would be a thief. A judge would garnish me. I would be the villain. But if I used her half to pay her debts? If I acted as a responsible husband ensuring his wife's financial solvency? I pulled the pile of credit card statements closer. I started typing. One by one I logged into the payment portals. I used her social security number, which I knew by heart. I used the power of attorney code to authorize the transactions. Citibank, paid in full. American Express, paid in full. The personal loan, paid in full. I watched the balance in our joint account drop. It was mesmerizing. I was burning her money to buy her freedom. She would be debt-free. She would have a perfect credit score. I kept going. I found an unpaid lease on a car she had supposedly returned years ago. Paid. I found a student loan she had told me was finished. Paid. When I was done, the pile of debt in the metal box was zero. I looked at the joint account. My share of the equity was untouched, sitting safely in my separate savings. Her share? Her share was now $412.50. I sat back in my chair. I had just spent nearly her entire settlement on her own bills. Legally I was untouchable. I hadn't stolen a dime. I had simply prioritized her liabilities over her liquidity. When she tried to withdraw cash in Vegas to impress Mark, she would find the well dry. But hey, at least she didn't know Visa anymore. I closed the laptop. The metal box was empty. Mr. Miller? The team leader was at the door. We are done upstairs. The ground floor is 90% cleared. We need the office now. I stood up. I picked up my laptop and the metal box. Take it, I said. Take it all. I walked out of the house and stood on the driveway. The rain had started again, a light mist that blurred the edges of the world. The trucks were being loaded. My life was being packed into cardboard cubes. I walked over to the garage. My car was packed with the few things I was keeping. My clothes. My drafting tools. The hard drives with my life's work. I watched as the movers brought out the last item, the large abstract painting that had hung in the foyer. Vanessa loved it. She said it represented chaos and beauty. Careful with that, I said. It goes to storage. The leader nodded. We will wrap it tight. By 2 p.m. the house was empty. I walked through it one last time. The echo of my footsteps was loud on the hardwood. Without the rugs, without the furniture, the house felt massive and cold. It felt like a skeleton. I went to the kitchen. The refrigerator was empty and unplugged, the door propped open. The counters were wiped clean. I took an envelope from my jacket pocket. Inside was the key to the storage unit on 4th Street, a copy of the closing statement from the house sale, and a printout of all the paid-in-full receipts I had just generated. I wrote a note on the front of the envelope. Vanessa, you are debt-free. You are welcome. David, I left the envelope on the kitchen island, the only surface remaining in the house. I walked to the front door. I keyed in the security code one last time. System armed. Exit in 60 seconds. The beeping started. A rhythmic countdown. I stepped out onto the porch and pulled the door shut. The lock engaged with a heavy, solid thud. I didn't look back. There is a rule in architecture: once the structure is condemned, you do not mourn the materials. You clear the site. I walked to my car. Marcus was waiting in his sedan at the end of the driveway, acting as the final courier. I pulled up next to him and rolled down the window. Keys? Marcus asked. I handed him the house keys. The remote for the gate. The alarm code. Volkov's people are taking possession at midnight? I asked. Marcus nodded, looking pale. Yeah. They are sending a security detail. Dogs and everything. David, are you sure about this? When she comes back. She won't come back here, I said. Not when she realizes she doesn't own it anymore. Where are you going? I looked at the road ahead. The gray asphalt stretching out into the wet afternoon. I have a small cabin, I said. Up north. Near the border. No cell service. Just trees and drafting paper. I need to design something new. Marcus looked at me with a mixture of awe and fear. You are a cold bastard, Miller. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in a week. I am just practical, Marcus. Structural integrity is everything. I rolled up the window and drove away. As I turned onto the highway, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Vanessa. A photo. It was a selfie of her and Mark in what looked like a first-class cabin. Champagne flutes in hand. She looked radiant. The caption read, "Lift off. See you Sunday. Hugs and kisses." I looked at the photo. I looked at the champagne. I looked at the man who was about to find out that his sugar mama was actually a solvency project. I typed a reply but didn't send it. Enjoy the flight. I deleted the text. I turned off the phone. I pulled the SIM card out and dropped it into the cup holder. I drove north. The city faded behind me. The rain got heavier, washing the road clean. I thought about the money. My half of the equity was safe in an offshore trust that Volkov had helped me set up as part of the deal. Untouchable. Invisible. I thought about the house. Volkov would probably gut it. He would probably turn it into a rental for tech executives or a safe house for his associates. I didn't care. It was just wood and glass. The real structure, the marriage, that was the thing that had been rotten. And I had just performed the most aggressive demolition in history. I turned on the radio. Classic rock. No news. No chatter. I was homeless. I was single. I was alone. And I had never felt more secure. The road wound up into the mountains, into the deep green of the evergreen forests. I breathed in the air coming through the vents. It smelled of pine and rain. I thought about the moment she would land. The moment she would try to use her card. The moment she would call the bank. It was a cruel thing I had done. I knew that. People would say I was vindictive. They would say I should have just divorced her and fought it out in court. But court takes years. Court is messy. Court allows for narratives and victimhood. This was math. She had spent years subtracting from me. Subtracting my confidence, subtracting my trust, subtracting my future. I had simply balanced the equation. I reached the turnoff for the cabin around 5 p.m. The sun was setting behind the peaks, casting long shadows across the valley. I navigated the gravel road, the tires crunching satisfyingly on the stones. The cabin was small. A simple A-frame I had bought years ago, before Vanessa, before the big house, before the lies. It was rough. Unfinished. I parked the car and killed the engine. The silence of the forest rushed in to fill the void. No traffic. No humming refrigerator. No lies. I stepped out and stretched. My back cracked. I walked to the edge of the deck and looked out at the valley. Somewhere down there in the grid of lights, that was the city Vanessa was landing. The play was about to enter its final act. But I wouldn't be there to see it. The audience had left the theater. I went inside and lit a fire in the wood stove. The smell of wood smoke filled the small room. I unpacked my drafting tools. I pinned a fresh sheet of white paper to the board. I picked up a pencil. For the first time in years, I didn't know what I was going to draw. And that was the most beautiful feeling in the world. Sunday evening in the North Cascades is a specific kind of darkness. It is not the light-polluted gray of the suburbs, nor the neon-infused black of the city. It is absolute. It is a darkness that presses against the windows of the cabin like a physical weight. I sat in the single leather armchair by the wood stove, watching the embers pulse. My drafting table was set up, but the paper remained blank. I was not designing yet. I was waiting for the demolition to be confirmed. It had been 48 hours since I left the house. 48 hours of silence. I had hiked. I had chopped wood until my palms were blistered. I had breathed air that did not smell of deception. On the small wooden table next to me lay my phone. It was powered off. A black slab of glass and plastic that held the potential energy of a hurricane. I checked my watch. 9:15 p.m. Her flight from Las Vegas landed at 7:30 p.m. Customs baggage claimed the drive home. She would be arriving at the house right about now. I could see it in my mind perfectly. The headlights of the Uber sweeping across the familiar brickwork of the driveway. The way she would look up, expecting the warm glow of the porch lights, perhaps annoyed that I hadn't left them on for her. She would be dragging her suitcase filled with the remnants of her weekend with Mark, the souvenirs of a life she thought she was upgrading to. She would walk to the front door. She would reach for her keys. I reached out and pressed the power button on my phone. The screen lit up with the Apple logo. It took a long, agonizing minute to boot. Then the floodgates opened. The phone vibrated violently on the table, dancing across the wood grain. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 17 missed calls. 34 text messages. 5 voicemails. All from Vanessa. I didn't read the texts. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I knew the script. Confusion first. Then irritation. Then panic. Then rage. The phone buzzed again in my hand. Incoming call. Vanessa. I took a deep breath. I imagined the steel beams of a skyscraper absorbing the wind load. Flexible but immovable. I slid my thumb across the screen. Hello, Vanessa, I said. David. Her voice was a shriek, a sound so distorted by hysteria it barely sounded human. David, where the hell are you? The key doesn't work. I can't get in. The alarm code is invalid. And there are men here, David. Security guards with dogs. They are telling me to leave my own property. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the fire. It is not your property, Vanessa. Not anymore. What? What are you talking about? Is this some kind of sick joke? Did you change the locks because I went away? Open the damn door, David. I am tired, I am cold, and these gorillas are threatening to call the police. They are not gorillas, I said calmly. They are employees of the Volkov Trust. The new owners. The silence on the other end was absolute for a split second before the explosion. Owners? What owners? David, have you lost your mind? You can't sell the house without me. My name is on the deed. I didn't sign anything. You did sign, I said. September 28 last year. The general power of attorney. You gave me full authority to manage, encumber, or liquidate all real estate assets. I exercised that authority on Friday. No. No. That expired. It expires next week, I corrected her. Or it would have. I beat the deadline. The sale closed on Friday afternoon. The title transfer is recorded with the county. The funds have cleared. The house is gone, Ness. I heard her breathing harsh and ragged. I could hear the wind blowing into her receiver. She was standing on the porch of a house that was now a fortress against her. You bastard, she hissed. You sold our home? While I was away? You were not away, I said. You were in Las Vegas. With Mark. The breathing stopped. I saw the Instagram post, Ness. Champagne. First class. Liftoff. You looked happy. David, listen. No, you listen, I interrupted, my voice hardening. I know about Mark. I know about the 6 months. I know you called me a stepping stone and a savings bond in the bathroom of that restaurant. Emily recorded it. I heard you laugh about how easy I was to manipulate. David, baby, that was just talk. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. And I know about the plan. I continued, rolling over her protests like a steamroller. I found the notebook in the lockbox. The debt. The plan to refinance the house behind my back. The plan to take the settlement money and run off with your broke boyfriend. I waited. This was the pivot point. The moment where the structural failure becomes undeniable. She didn't deny it. She shifted instantly from defense to attack. Her true nature, the one I had glimpsed in the recording, finally took the wheel. Fine, she spat. Fine. You know. So what? You think you won? You think you can just leave me on the street? I am your wife, David. Washington is a community property state. Half of that sale is mine. I want my money. I want my share right now, or I swear to God I will sue you until you are living in a cardboard box. I smiled. It was a sad smile, but it was satisfied. I knew you would say that. And you are right. Half the money was yours. Was? She screamed the word. I acted as your attorney, in fact, I said. I have a fiduciary duty to manage your liabilities. I found your credit card statements, Ness. The Visa. The Amex. The personal loans. The collection agencies. So I paid them. What? I used your share of the house proceeds to pay off your debts. All of them. The $60,000 in credit cards. The $20,000 personal loan. The student loans. I even paid off that car lease you defaulted on 4 years ago. There was a silence on the line that was heavier than the darkness outside. You paid my bills? Every single penny, I said. You are debt-free, Vanessa. Your credit score should bounce back in a few months. It is a clean slate. But the rest? The cash? Mark needs. I need. There is no rest, I said. After the debts were cleared, your share of the equity came to about $400. I left it in an envelope on the kitchen island. Along with the receipts. You might have to ask the security guard nicely to get it for you. You burned it? Her voice was a whisper of pure horror. You burned $500,000 on Visa bills? I didn't burn it. I settled your accounts. You are welcome. You son of a bitch. She screamed. I need that money. Mark is. Mark is broke, I said. And now so are you. But hey, at least you don't owe anyone anything. You are free, Ness. Isn't that what you wanted? Freedom? She was sobbing now. Ugly raw sobs of someone who realizes the parachute has failed to open. David, please. Please don't do this. I have nowhere to go. Mark won't take me if I don't have the capital. He is leveraged. I know, I said. That is why I did it. Predictable people safeguard their investments, Ness. You were a bad investment. I liquidated you. David, let me in. Please. We can talk about this. The new owner is strict, I said. No trespassers. Goodbye, Vanessa. David. I hung up. I didn't just hang up. I blocked the number. I sat there for a long time holding the phone. I expected to feel guilt. I expected to feel the phantom pain of the limb I had just severed. But I felt nothing. Just the quiet satisfaction of a job completed to code. I stood up and walked to the window. The reflection in the glass showed a man who looked tired but solid. The lines around my eyes were still there, but the tension in my shoulders was gone. I went back to the drafting table. The white paper was glowing in the light of the kerosene lamp. I picked up my pencil. I placed the tip on the paper. I drew a line. Straight. Strong. Then another. I wasn't drawing a house. Not yet. I was drawing a foundation. Deep footings. Reinforced concrete. Something that could weather the storm. Outside the wind howled through the fir trees shaking the branches. But inside the cabin the fire cracked warmly and the only sound was the scratch of graphite on paper. The architect was back at work. Epilogue: 3 weeks later the lawyer's office was in downtown Seattle on the 40th floor overlooking the Sound. The rain had returned washing the city in its usual gray palette. I sat on one side of the mahogany conference table. My attorney, a sharp woman named Sarah who specialized in high-asset dissolution, sat beside me. On the other side sat Vanessa. She looked different. The gloss was gone. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun and she wore a simple off-the-rack suit that didn't fit her quite right. She looked smaller. Diminished. Next to her was a court-appointed mediator. She couldn't afford a high-end shark. Not anymore. So the mediator said, adjusting his glasses. "We have reviewed the financial disclosures provided by Mr. Miller." He looked at Vanessa, then at me. "Mr. Miller's actions regarding the sale of the primary residence and the subsequent disbursement of funds appear to be strictly legal." Vanessa made a noise in her throat, a choked sound of frustration. "He stole my future," she whispered. "He paid your debts," Sarah corrected her smoothly, sliding a binder across the table. "As you can see, Ms. Miller, every transaction was documented. You were insolvent. Mr. Miller used his legal authority to restore your financial standing. You are currently debt-free. That is a significant benefit in a divorce settlement." "But the cash," Vanessa said, her voice trembling. "He knew. He knew I needed the liquid assets." "Intent is difficult to prove," the mediator said. "The fact is the funds were used for your benefit. The debts were in your name." I looked at Vanessa. She looked at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "Where is Mark?" I asked quietly. She flinched as if I had slapped her. "He is gone," she said. He had business in Dubai. He couldn't take me." "Because you couldn't buy your ticket?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just looked down at her hands. Her ring finger was bare. I had the ring. It was in a pawn shop somewhere on Pike Street. "We are prepared to offer a clean break," Sarah said. "No alimony either way. Mr. Miller keeps his personal savings and retirement accounts, which were separate property. Ms. Miller keeps her personal effects and the benefit of her debt relief." Vanessa looked at the mediator. "Is that it? That is all I get? Zero?" "You get a fresh start," the mediator said gently. "And considering the evidence of infidelity and the intentions regarding Mr. Miller's assets found in your journal, a judge might not look kindly on a prolonged battle. This is a fair deal, Ms. Miller." Vanessa picked up the pen. Her hand shook. I watched her sign. The loop of the V was less flamboyant than it used to be. It was smaller. Humble. She pushed the papers across the table. "I hope it was worth it," she said, looking at me. "I hope you are happy alone in the woods." I took the papers. I signed my name. David Miller. "I am not alone," I said, standing up and buttoning my jacket. "I have myself. And for the first time in a long time I like the company." I walked out of the office and into the elevator. When the doors opened to the lobby, I walked out into the rain. I didn't open my umbrella. I let the water hit my face. It felt clean. I walked to my car where the new blueprints were rolled up in the back seat. I had bought a new plot of land. Not on a hill. Not for show. A piece of land by the river, flat and solid. I was going to build something small. Something real. 1 story. No grand staircases to fall down. No hidden rooms. Just windows facing the sun and a door that only opened for people who knocked with honest hands. I started the engine and merged into the traffic. The city was noisy and chaotic, but inside the car it was quiet. The rearview mirror showed the skyscraper disappearing into the clouds. I didn't adjust the mirror. I didn't look back. I shifted gears and accelerated toward the north. Toward the river. Toward the work. The deal was done. The blindfold was off. And the view? The view was spectacular.